My friends, have you ever seen this picture? Well, if you've played GoldenEye 007, you probably have, whether you knew it or not. But how did this end up in the game, and why is it also on the cover of my childhood atlas? I mean, this really intrigued me when I first noticed the connection in-game, and it's all led me to the obscure and niche group that studies and preserves textures in video games. So that's what we're looking at today. My friends, enjoy 20 or so odd minutes of useless facts about GoldenEye 007's textures and stock images.
Here we go!
According to GoldenEye texture expert Ben C. on Blue Sky, this monitor texture, which appears in Aztec, originates from a photo of the Sinai Peninsula taken on June 14, 1991 during Space Shuttle Columbia mission STS-40. And that's sort of the key, because the developers of video games need to build out the games with images and textures. A lot of the stuff they use comes from either the public domain or texture packs which they've bought and are approved to use. We'll get into those later. In particular, when it comes to GoldenEye, a lot of the space shuttle textures come from NASA, many of whose images are in the public domain. And these images are featured prominently in-game to suggest that Yanis is going to use the GoldenEye satellite to do some bad stuff from outer space. This image even has a page on the nasa.gov website where it points out something interesting that I noticed many years ago, and that's you can clearly see the border between Egypt and Israel, and it says this is because of different types of rural architecture. So hey, how's that for some GoldenEye facts and lore? And so it probably ended up on my childhood atlas for the same reason it ended up in GoldenEye. It's a public domain image, saving the creators money to depict what they needed to depict. Alright, check this one out. Do you know there's this cabin here over on Statue? It's a very unusual cabin. It serves really no purpose in the game. It doesn't even have a door on it. Just go in, it's like a Surface 1 style cabin that's just been transplanted to the statue. No use, no objective, you do not come into contact with it at any point while playing unless you're kind of exploring the stage. Well, my friends, do you know where the roof shingles of this cabin come from? Well, believe it or not, according to the Video Game Texture Preservation Project, they're actually from Rapture's Volume 1, the wood shingles image file. But my friends, what is Rapture's Volume 1? Well, Rapture's was a series of discs, CD-ROMs, that were sort of in the developer's kit of what they would use to assemble these video games back in the day. And as we see, there's many, many images. I mean, it's not that many, it was the early 90s after all. But there's many images of textures and things. Whoa, we just saw a guard spawn out of the cabin. That's pretty crazy. Many textures that go into being used and chopped up and replanted here and there. And the Video Game Texture Preservation Project has found that indeed this texture is a bunch of copy and pasted textures of the Shingles texture from Rapture's Volume 1. And you know, a lot of this stuff gets sort of recolored, maybe stretched, inverted, flipped, and so it's really quite a skill to find what came from where. Now apparently, this archives courtyard, we can see the roof up here is also the same shingle property. We can kind of see they're colored a bit differently, but hey, it looks pretty similar. Now that is truly remarkable. The Video Game Texture Preservation Project is run by a fella by the name of Ruvalese, and I tell you, the stuff these guys find is just unbelievable. Here's another one from the VGTP. These bushes on streets, which I didn't even know about until a couple of years ago, are apparently, no doubt, do you recognize it? They're the Juniper 1.0 texture from Rapture's Volume 1. Now that, my friends, is truly amazing. And lo and behold, here on the depot stage, The train tracks are built on top of, you know, red stone pebbles, as one would imagine. Where are these red stone pebbles from? Well, according to VGTP, they are none other than the Rocks Volcano file from Rapture's Volume 1. That is truly remarkable. You know, Raptures, and there's a number of other sorts of these libraries of textures that a lot of developers used over the years. And so when you browse through VGTP's tweets and archive, you'll find a lot of things from Raptures and Solzhenitsyn and Visual Disk and a number of other libraries of old stock images. And I mean, it really adds another level of appreciation when you realize that so much of these games that we've come to know and love were just stapled together bits of texture from 90s era CD-ROMs. And it's an amazing thing these guys do, browsing through these CD-ROMs and matching the textures to the game. Here's what I love on Cradle, courtesy of Ben C on Blue Sky. If you look at the beginning where we start on Cradle, this sort of, you know, tower piece, we just get this, you know, diamond plate texture here. And in fact, I'm gonna shoot a couple of times to mark it with some paintballs, okay? One paintball, great. I have a lot of cheats on, turbo mode included. We're gonna check out the other towers on the level. There's 2 more. So if we go over here and go to the right, and we go to the bottom of this tower, we're gonna see, once again, the same diamond plate, and, you know, it leads into whatever this texture is. Okay, great. Nothing too remarkable about that. And actually, just looking at the diamond plate, I may know where this diamond plate is from. I don't know if they've ever documented this, but anyways, the third tower. So this is not the starting point, not the point to the right. This would be the tower to the left when you start. At the very end here is a yellow strip. Like, why is the yellow strip down here? And why is it not present on any of the other 2 tower locations? It's just such a strange decision. Who knows if a developer would ever even have a reason why. Ben C theorizes that that was the first tower made, even though it's not the starting point, and that maybe they meant to add the stripes everywhere and didn't. Here's the starting one. Remember, there's my shot. And no yellow strips there. But one of the 3 towers has them, and that's just so bizarre, so strange. I love it. It's probably my favorite texture fact in GoldenEye 007. Now there's one more interesting thing here on Cradle, and I only noticed this recently. You know, I've been playing the game for 20 years now, 30 years almost, but in both of these rooms, there's this sort of document just like taped or stapled to the wall. Like, what on earth is this? And I'm not even sure the original texture has ever been found. It looks like some architectural design, maybe for the Cradle, and a note. I would love if we could ever find original copies of these and what they're supposed to mean and represent. And lo and behold, on the other sort of box, the other hut on the Cradle, we get the same paper texture here. Again, as far as I know, never been identified. No idea what it is. I would love to see a high-res version somewhere if one of these texture guys can dig it up. No smoking, baby. You don't want to light up on the Arecibo Cradle. And also be careful because you might get shocked. Lots of amazing warning signs. Here's another cool one pointed out by Ben C on Blue Sky. He says that these tanks, look at this sort of like marker plate texture, they're actually almost identical, if not identical, to the markers on tanks from the movie. And Ben C says that we know the developers visited the sets and took photos. So I'm not sure if this comes from a photo the developers took, or if they just screen capped the movie once it came out. Again, you know, I've played Runway for 20, 30 years, never really looked or pondered too much about this number 6 texture, this marking on the tank, what it could all mean. But hey, these are the beautiful, unseen, lesser appreciated textures in GoldenEye 007. The mystery of this door will haunt me forever. Maybe one day we'll find out and get to talk about that. Here's a crazy one I really like. The stock of the sniper rifle is apparently the same wood texture used in this screenshot from Donkey Kong Country 3. According to the VGTP, the source is still unknown, but it surely dates back before 1994. I mean, I never even knew that the sniper rifle was made of wood. It always just felt like this weird red metal to me, so that's amazing, but clearly it is a wood texture on the sniper, something I never knew. So here we are on the inside of a lift, many such cases in GoldenEye 007, and I want you to commit this to memory, okay? At the very top we have red up, green down. We have a couple more items here, like some kind of buttons on the left, up, down, and a light. Maybe that's supposed to be the whole elevator switch on the right. The doors look like this, arrows pointing in and out. This is the opening of caverns. I have on invincibility and invisibility in turbo mode. But that's neither here or there. Just commit that this is what each lift looks like. Here with turbo mode on, I've made it to the end of caverns. I have no exits Game Shark code on. Let's take a look at the lift. Again, red arrow up, green arrow down, same exact sort of textures in the lift. Okay, great. Just for good measure, let's look at the beginning of Control. Well, Control's a bit different. We don't have anything on either side and no up-down arrows, which is interesting because this is supposed to be the lift we get in at the end of Jungle. So keep this all in mind. But let's check out that final lift at the end of Jungle, shall we? Okay, are you ready for this? The ending lift of Jungle instead does not have the up-down arrows, but rather they're replaced with sort of like the textures behind them on the stage. This one on the left looks like this steel beam, and this one on the right looks sort of like the just generic wall texture of the stage. Now, of course, without the no exits Game Shark code on, that, no despawning point, I wouldn't normally be able to see this. The ending cutscene of the level, you don't see it. As soon as you enter, it fades out. So it is quite an anomaly, They just didn't put it in, the developers, and they thought they could get away with it, and no one would notice. Ben C on Blue Sky writes, why were the arrows replaced only on this lift? It could be a mistake, but in my opinion, it's actually more likely was done to save memory. The level designer assumed no one would be able to notice, and unless you're really looking for it, the designer was correct. And hey, there you go. Look, this switch is also like really glitching out. No consistency there, although I guess you can shoot it out. It is a glass covering the light there. But yeah, very interesting, and at a time, Ben C actually tweeted this out on Twitter as opposed to Blue Sky, although he's deleted that now. And we see that Dr. Doke himself, quote, retweeted it saying, good to see we're still logging art bugs. Isn't that funny? And of course, everyone in the replies is asking for a patch. That's what I love a lot about GoldenEye, is that there's no patches, nothing gets hard fixed, hot fixed, all that kind of stuff. The game is the game, and that what makes playing it and all the glitches and strategies so legendary over the years. It'd be unfortunate if these things were changed as soon as they were found, and hey, that's why I prefer this era of gaming, and I'm sure many of you viewing do as well. What's going on with these inscriptions on the wall here? Well, according to Ben C on Blue Sky, believe it or not, some of these Aztec textures originate from the Codex Zeusch Nuttall, or at least a facsimile of it. But my friends, what is the Codex Zeusch Nuttall? Well, it's a sort of pre-Columbian document of Mixtec pictography, which is of course now in the collection of the British Museum. Thanks to Wikipedia for informing me of this. So apparently there were a bunch of manuscripts, drawings, these sorts of things, which depicted the Mixtec culture. Now that is a distinct culture from the Aztec culture, so it doesn't entirely make perfect sense to be on this level, although, would a 90s gamer kid really know the difference? And importantly, these inscriptions, since they were done, in the 1400s, 1500s, are all public domain images. So, the developers of GoldenEye were not going to get into any trouble you know, making replications of these images, passing them through some kind of stone filter. And hey, it certainly looks the part. Now, if we turn our sights over here, we'll see this texture come up quite a fair bit on this Aztec stage if we look close. But what is this? Well, this one is actually an authentic Aztec feather shield, dating to about the year 1520, according to Ben C. And there's an actual artifact of this shield at the Landesmuseum in Württemberg, Germany. Now that's pretty epic. We can even see, you know, a picture of this shield uploaded to the Wikimedia Commons. And again, a public domain thing is certainly how it was able to be used in this video game. And we can look and see in the corner here this one more strange carving. What is this? Well, my friends, according to Ben C, this Aztec texture comes from a picture of Altar 4 at La Venta, an Olmec archaeological site located in Tabasco, Mexico. Historians believe this altar was actually used as a throne to seat Olmec rulers during important ceremonies. Now that's quite interesting, and of course the Olmecs were as well a distinct group from the Aztecs, did not really cohabitate the same area or time. But again, to just a young 90s gamer passing through, you know, I remember playing it for the first time this stage and thinking it looked so crazy, almost terrifying, like you're Indiana Jones in a lost temple, and hey, when you're a young gamer lad, you don't really know the difference between Olmecs and Aztecs. I think a lot of us would still be hard-pressed, you know, shows, unless we're some kind of American pre-Columbian historian, frankly. And so, hey, some pretty cool textures in this first room. Here's a crazy one on Aztec, and huge shout out to Ben C for this one. This is like a legendary find, honestly. If we look all the way up there, we can see a strange texture up there, but what is it? Thankfully, Ben C has a better view of it. He says it's a lone, faint, and seemingly out-of-place graffiti in Aztec just outside the Jaws room. Extremely hard to see on console due to its position high on the wall, more easily viewed in emulator or the setup editor. It spells KIH, the initials of level designer Carl Hilton. And indeed, we can see a close-up version of the graffiti. You know, really amazing. It kind of harkens to actually what real architects do. You know, I'm sure if you've ever been on a tour of a city, you've heard sort of a real architect doing similar on something they built. And so to see Carl Hilton putting his name in graffiti up here is pretty remarkable and amazing. Okay, I absolutely love this one. Texture match for GoldenEye 007. The trees for statue and streets level are actually a single tree stacked and pasted on top of itself from Image Cell's CD-ROM 1990. The disc appears to be lost to time, but they're still looking for it. So that's interesting in its own self. Now, I actually talked to Ruvalise about this, and he says that they were able to find the tree from like an archived thumbnail of this disc, but no one actually has the raw disc. No one surfaced with it, and so it kind of is a bit of lost media mystery. But what makes this even more insane is that the same tree is used in Daytona, USA 1994. And once again, we see the tweet saying they're still hunting for that disc. And that's just so insane to me that, you know, these textures, these trees, these things that painted our childhood and our life are just an image of a tree. And yet they kind of were able to create these wonderful worlds with them and hearken to your imagination. And then the fact that this disc is missing, it creates sort of a new real world mystery that you can sort of interact with and ponder in real life as well. And I just love it. And it's just such a crazy thing to get obsessed over. But hey, look, thousands of people follow this and are excited when they find a texture match. So I can't be the only one who's totally engaged and amazed by this kind of thing. Well, hey, that'll do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this amazing look at these wonderful textures in GoldenEye. There's a lot more fun facts out there, so I could do it all again if you wish. Let me know in the comments, my friends. Thanks for watching, and a huge thanks to the Patreon supporters for supporting over on Patreon. Stay true, my friends, and I will see you in the next stream or video.